Welcome, everybody, to the World of Ability Podcast Network. My name is Emily Gomer, and a podcast engineer here. But excited to bring you another episode of the World of Pets with Debbie Hayes. And so this is going to be a fun show, since it's all about our furry friends, and with that being an animal house. We are here every Tuesday at the same time. So if anybody is interested in joining us or tuning in to our YouTube channel or anything like that, I encourage you to get a hold of us. But I am going to bring in Debbie here to get us kicked off.
Thank you, Emily. Yes, we we have pets that we love. We want them to feel safe with us. We want them to feel our unconditional love because, of course, they have unconditional love for us. But we also want them to live a long time so we can enjoy them for longer. And we want that to be a healthy life. So myself and my co-host, who's not feeling well this evening, David, have found something that we feel fits that bill by use of a mushroom supplement. And yes, we want to share some about that because we feel like we do have a good thing. But mostly we want to discover everything about pets and laugh and cry about our pets. So this evening we have Cheri Wallace. And I've met Cheri before, but I've never really spoken to her about what she does. So this is going to be a true organic interview. I'm very excited for it. And we'll get Cheri in here to describe her organization a little bit, since I know she can do it better than I can. And then she can talk, and I will raise my hand if I have a question and she doesn't take a breath at the right time. How's that, Cheri?
No problem, Debbie. And yes, we did meet before, and I'm glad to reconnect with you. And thank you, Emily, for asking me to be here. Indeed. You want me to just dive in, or you?
I do. Yeah.
So I am working on a project to reform the entire funeral industry. And I know that sounds like it's a huge undertaking, no pun intended, but it's because it is a huge undertaking. Um, the cost of funerals, both for humans and for pets, is something that we need to address. And I am stubborn enough, I guess, and had it hit me hard enough that I feel unstoppable at this point. I figured out how to reform the funeral industry, and um, it's by forming cemetery societies and doing it the way that our grandparents used to do it. And it was so simple. They simply went around town and they gathered $1 or 10 from everyone in town that could, and they purchased land as a community, wasn't owned by any one person. And then they built a community center and opened a graveyard, and there were no more costs to be buried there. And then we're going back to that. And so a new board member um, suggested that we have a pet cemetery within our cemetery society. And I thought, well, how cool, of course. And then when I found out how much pet burials were, they can be as expensive as a human burial. And there's people that love their pets more than they love themselves. So people are doing without, right? They're doing without electricity, or better food choices, or even medicines to to care for, to doctor, and then to intern their pets. So with my project, we are selling a membership society that you can belong to for a simple one-time $100 membership fee. You can belong to a cemetery society that we will be purchasing projects all over the country. So if you lived in Tennessee and had a membership to our Tennessee society,
So let
but
me
you
interrupt
died.
you. Thank you. So, okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the people part first, just to sort of set the tone. And I agree with everything that you said about the pets 100%. And I think you were starting to go back there before I interrupted, so I apologize. But I do want to ask one question, because I know that your website is under development right now, so there's not a lot of information on there. But, or maybe I was just in a hurry and didn't get everything. But how are you going about getting something in every state?
Thank you. So we need 50,000 people to agree that if we can purchase land in their state, they would become a member. And once we get 50,000 names on our list, then we'll all meet at the courthouse, or you can PayPal your money in, and we'll buy it as a society. We'll buy it as a 501c7 society, and your pets can be members as well as yourself. So if it's $100 membership for a human, it's $100 membership for your pet, and you can be buried alongside of or separately. But we will have a pet whole family, I think they call it, whole family cemetery section, so people can be buried with their pets.
So it's $100 per person or pet. So if, say that that you have young children, and God forbid something happened to the whole family, so there were 4 people and 2 pets, then it would be $600 for that family. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. I mean, that's a no-brainer, really. That's if you subscribe to what you're going to tell us occurs.
So what we're planning on doing is bringing people completely back to the way that our great grandparents used to handle death care. And again, they would crowdfund for the land. Then once they had the money, they would go buy it. We're suggesting to do the same thing, and even make it even easier for people. All they have to do is put their name on a list for, say, North Carolina. In North Carolina, we've got like 2,000 names. Well, once we get 50,000 names on the list of people who would, if we could, then we'll go to closing on a property, specifically on the Elgin Mansion, which is what we're raising funds for right now. But this same process can be duplicated in every state across the country. And then once you become a member, then you have a couple of things that you need to do. You need to figure out whether you're going to be buried in a casket, and what kind. Who's going to drive you to the cemetery, and if you're going to need help with that, and then who's going to dig your holes. So we plan on having enough people to handle all this for people, but we're hoping that families will become more involved the way that our ancestors used to be involved. And even my own family, we're from West Virginia, and my cousins wouldn't dare think of letting someone else dig our family graves. They wouldn't dare. And my father considers it an honor to be able to dig. And he's that's just my family, though. Not every family's like that, but we're hoping to bring it all back.
So if a family needs assistance of that type, Is there going to be a charge for that in addition to the $100 per person, or?
So we're hoping that we have a good enough volunteer uh, system that there wouldn't be. But people will know. So if you, so like me, I'm single. Um, I I'm going to need to figure something out, right? So I've got a lot of friends, but I don't have, brothers and sisters and cousins locally anymore. So it's people will have some work to do, a slight bit. You got to figure out what the rest of your plan is. It's not just buy a membership society and then roll up dead one day.
Yep. Yep.
Right.
Wow. That's very interesting. So,
One of the most beautiful things
but
about what
people,
I'm doing One of the
go
most
ahead.
beautiful things about what I'm doing is that we're looking for amazing estates, not just 20 acres at the bottom of a cornfield. We're looking for 2, 3, 400 acre estates, lovely estates that people want to come and visit. People want to, hey, it's Papa's birthday next weekend. You want to go rent the executive suite at the Elgin Mansion, that kind of thing. Or, having a cemetery society kind of changes the dynamics of it. It's not a lonely cemetery on a hill. We've got a 6,000 square foot or larger mansion. We're going to be having small events and functions at that home, at that facility, on those grounds. And that's kind of part of my plan too, is just to not make it a lonely cemetery.
So what, um, so how would you fund the upkeep on the physical building? It seems like that is sort of a separate, or at least a more expensive issue than just funding a cemetery grounds situation.
So the numbers on this workout, Debbie, that you're going to be astonished. Listen to this one time. If we get 300 acres, so let's just talk specifically about the Elgin Mansion in North Carolina, Macon, North Carolina. It's 300 acres, and we're assuming we can bury 300,000 people. Well, or pets, right? So and that all depends on cremation, because we may be able to bury more, but we're assuming 300,000 members. Well, 300,000 members times $100 is $30 million. So I think that we're going to sell out rather fast once I finally can get the word out there, and all my ducks in a row. I've got to still have ducks to get in a row. This didn't. This is still a work in progress, but I'm getting there. But $30 million sets us in a different position. As far as perpetual care, most cemeteries have set aside 10%, because we're a private cemetery society, and because we're going to be dealing with numbers as large as what we're dealing with. We're not going to be forced to have a 10% perpetual care fund, but we're going to do it. So we'll have a perpetual care fund just like every other cemetery of 10%, in case something happens to the society and nobody ever comes back with it. Somebody can pay for keeping, but I don't expect that ever to happen. Well, you're going to have 300,000 members to a society. I can imagine this is going to be the most beautiful 300 acres in the state of North Carolina.
So, so your website, I mean, you're making it sound like people had the option if they want to do a casket, if they want to be cremated, and if they want to be put into an urn that's buried. But to the website makes it sound like it's just either the body or the ashes with nothing to hold them. So which scenario there is correct?
Well, I will correct that. You can be buried in whatever you want to as long as it is biodegradable. So just no metal, no concrete, no formaldehyde. And if somebody wants to be cremated, totally cool with me. It doesn't matter. In fact, we're legislating or looking to get legislation changed in all 49 states so that we can do outdoor cremations. Currently, the Colorado is the only state that can do outdoor cremations, but we've got a large section of people who want to go out like Vikings. So I'm going to see if I can make that happen for them. And then, there's people who the Indian burial tradition is kind of cool.
I was
And
thinking
I think,
about that today.
were you
Uh-huh.
being buried like
Well,
an Indian? All right.
well, I mean,
Well,
they have the beer, that's what they call it, right? BIER, where they have like the stanchions and um they put the body on, like, I'm sure that they have that it's like sticks or parts of a tree that are strapped up to the stanchions, and then they burn the body. Is that correct?
yeah. Yeah.
So that would be an option if people wanted to do that.
Yeah, if we can get legislation changed, we have to do some work down at the courthouse. But if we can get that changed, and if Colorado can do it, we should be able to do it. And especially because we're going to have 2, 3, 4, 500 acre properties. I think a lot of that is because they don't want neighbors to have to, oh, I can smell them. They're, burning a body. You know what I mean? There's that outdoor aspect to it. But I believe, if you have 200 or 300 acres and your pond or, your burial, your crematory area is in the middle of it, I don't necessarily know that your neighbors are going to have any kind of issue, but we'll see. We'll find out. We've got a lawyer looking at what the legislation looks like and supposed to be getting back to us so that we can start here in North Carolina introducing it.
Okay. Well, if it makes, I don't know, maybe I should get a clearer nose and go outside. I actually live about, as the crow flies, probably 2 blocks from a cemetery that has a crematorium. And
My understanding is they
I,
have to have this. Go ahead.
pardon me?
My understanding is they have to have this special duct, this special venting that
Oh,
recaptures the smoke and or smell, and I guess they filter that again so that there is none. And I don't know if we could ever figure out how to
okay.
do that in an outdoor um, application, but that would be interesting. If you could just build your pyre and then have a chimney up above it, that had this contraption that
Yeah.
recaptures the smoke. And, maybe you could build something that was outdoors but worked like it was indoors. Nothing's impossible if you ask me. I'm gonna reform the whole funeral industry.
Yeah. So, so the Elgin mansion that you're talking about in North Carolina is, I mean, I'm assuming that a great thing would be if someone donated something like that. Is that donated specifically? I mean, you're talking about that like it's, like it's part of your organization already.
No. So I don't want anyone to donate me or us a mansion. I want members. Without, they could give us Elgin Mansion, and without members, we don't have a society, So, and without members,
That's true.
right? And then there's no people are going to, how human nature is. they're going to be like, "Oh, well, we'll get it when we need it." Well, with the cemetery society, you can't.
Yeah,
It's not. You have to be a member. You can't come to us dead and try to become a member. So, right?
right,
You and it's only a one-time $100. It's not like you have to pay that every year. So you could buy this
right.
for your kid at birth or your grandchild at birth or your dog or whatever, right? Your neighbor. For $100, you could buy your neighbor's funeral now. So I
Hmm.
know it sounds too good to be true. And let me just say this, Debbie. Um, I have two websites, letsbetrees.com and letsbetrees.org. And letsbetrees.com got fished, and I can't transfer it to letsbetrees.org, which has the most information on it.
Right.
So now I'm either stuck with updating both websites, which not, I'm barely capable of doing one, but,
Yeah.
and now they're on two different platforms. So I apologize. I think you may have gone to my .com, letsbetrees.com, because I don't feel like letsbetrees.org is lacking. It's lacking plenty, but I feel like it's pretty concise. I
Okay.
hope so.
And I did go to both, but I was in a bit of a hurry, um, so I did just peruse it very, very briefly. So Cheri, can you tell us what um, is there a certain profession that you've been in that sort of guided you in this direction, or how did you start with this idea?
So, no. I've always been infatuated with graveyards, though. I mean, my girlfriends on my birthdays, they would be like, "Okay, what cemetery do you want to go to?" And I'm like, "Well, I, I like Spring Hill Cemetery." And we would go out there and they would entertain me. And I just have always, I'd pick the cemetery. I'd go on vacation, pick the oldest cemetery in the county and go visit it on Sunday morning. I've done that my whole life. And but a few years ago, my sister's husband died, and first death I'd experienced in a while, and um, I watched her struggle to try to come up with the money to bury him and not have to cremate him.
Right.
And so she does a GoFundMe now. She's got 5 kids. She's kind of just getting by. And so she has to do this GoFundMe. And instead of grieving, my big sister was fundraising. And it was heartbreaking. And I thought, this is wrong. There's no reason why this has got to be like this. And I didn't realize what the numbers looked like yet, Debbie. I didn't know. I just thought somehow we got to make funerals free again. And then my dad tells me, I'm like all gung ho. I'm like, Dad, I'm going to reform the whole funeral industry. He's like, okay, whatever, Cheri. And I'm like, no, really, I'm going to do it. And he said, in 1950, your grandfather died and grandma was pregnant with Aunt Johnita. That was their 13th child.
Ooh.
He said, grandma's pregnant with Aunt Johnita and she had to give up the family car to bury grandpa. So
Wow.
now my grandmother is 13 children and walking. That lit a fire under me. I
Hmm.
I I had heard the story, but it had never sunk in like that. And then I thought, okay, well, I I'm just going to figure this out. How can we make funerals free again? And buy really nice estates, right? Because nobody wants to be buried at 20 acres at the bottom of a cornfield, right? No one's
Right.
looking forward to that. Okay.
Yeah.
So I wanted to have really nice upscale country club type of an atmosphere so that people wanted to be there. And then once I backed into the situation, once you realize how many people you can put on 300,000 acres, then you can figure out that really $100 is too much. So $100 and 300,000 people gives you 30 million. $100 times 300,000 people gives you $30 million. And that's too much money. The Elgin Mansion is 3 million. So if we set ourselves up with 10 million and reinvested the 20 million, we could pay dividends back to our members. And that's where I'm saying funerals are going to become free. Everything else is an elective. You're anything from a flower to a pine box. That's an elective. You could go in your birthday suit. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
You Everything else is an elective as far as I'm concerned. So funerals really could become free. I'll
And
tell
they
you the
are,
truth.
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go.
This is definitely sort of along the line of the model that you're looking at, but not exactly. When I was visiting Kansas, which is where I grew up, I went out to this small town that my grandmother was from, and so their situation, it was a community, but it was right on the grounds of the church. So it was different in that respect because the church obviously was an organization, not, getting freestanding land like you're talking about. But it was quite interesting. One of my great aunts died at around, I think she was about age 10. She got thrown off a horse. And so I saw, where she was buried, and it was there. I had a lot of family buried there. It was really interesting. I don't know that I would want to go every year on my birthday, but I definitely like the old, the old graveyards. Have you ever done the what do you call it, where you put the paper up and take the impression of what's on the old gravestones by rubbing them with pencil? There's a name for that. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, but I've never done it. I've never. Did you do it?
Okay. I didn't
Did you?
know, but that's something
No.
that'll be a new one for you. I'm going to check with you after your birthday and see if you did it. So yeah, I love those old. I lived in New England for a while, and I love those really old graveyards
Me
where you can
too.
barely read what's on the gravestone anymore.
I like going out there more than I like going to like a nightclub or a bar. You know what I mean? Where
Uh-huh.
most people feel really comfortable in a loud club. I'll go out to a cemetery and turn up Frank Sinatra music and sit out and call everybody by name. And I don't know. I guess I'm different, but that's me.
So how would you go about? So I'm in Arizona. Um, how would you go about starting the organization or the community in Arizona?
I'm glad you asked, Debbie Hayes. Indeed. I am looking for a board of directors in Arizona. And as soon as we find 4 or 5 people to fill that board of director roles, then we're counting on that board of directors to find ambassadors and members. And we'll start promoting out in Arizona. I haven't found anything in Arizona. The closest I found out that way, I think it was in Colorado. It was like 300 acres, beautiful place. Might have been 400, but there's no shortage of beautiful mansions across the country. There's no shortage.
Mhm.
And in all sorts of repair, from pristine to, needs some love, But with $30 million, like a
Right.
lot's possible.
Uh-huh.
So all we need, somebody said to me, well, you just need a money tree. They were kind of being flipped. I don't need a money tree because everybody we know has $100, right? We need people. We
Mhm.
just need people who would say, hey, that's a great idea. And if you could get one here, I would join. And we just need their names. That's all we need are the names. And then when 50,000 of them step up, and if the property's like 3 million, then I want 5 million to start, right?
Mhm.
So we don't want to start with less than
Right.
50,000 people, right? Or otherwise we're going to be trying to figure out how to pay the bills. But once we find 50,000 people, then we meet at the courthouse. We buy the property as a 501c7, not owned by me, not owned by you, owned by the society. And we've got a board of directors. I love it when these people are like, well, that sounds like you could get in a lot of trouble. Well, be on the board of directors and make sure there's no trouble on your board. You know, I
Mhm.
invite everybody that's got a cynical thing to say, get involved. And you can be sure that there won't be any funny business, right?
Yeah. So say I'm going to stick with Arizona for a minute. So there's a lot of open land here, obviously. Um, I mean, would that be one option of just the land itself and then possibly putting a property up there, or maybe, I mean, a building structure up there, or maybe not?
Absolutely everything's possible, Debbie. And we're not beyond somebody donating acreage. So if somebody's got 2 or 10 or 20 acres that they want to donate in Arizona or any state in this country, we'll certainly take it and utilize it to the best that we can, whether it's uh, a small community cemetery, um, or we use it as leverage to buy what we
Right.
want, or however that works out. Would I like to have a large fancy estate on 300 acres in every single state? Sure. But would we give up 20 acres at the bottom of a cornfield? No. Because guess what? One property with 300,000 people isn't nearly enough in each state. So,
Mhm.
so we're going to need a lot of properties in every state.
That,
That
that's
means a board of directors for every one, you know? I mean,
yeah.
this is huge. And when people look at me like, "What are you doing? You're trying to reform the funeral industry." I'm like, "No one else is doing it, Debbie. Nobody else has, I before I got on here, I was looking at what the cost is to bury a pet. Have you seen it? You
Well,
have any idea what it,
it depends on what you do, but I know that if you do what we consider one of the more humane things and actually have the vet come to your house so that the pet can be in their familiar territory at that time, then yeah, around $600, I believe.
and then what, would you bury them in your backyard and leave them when you sell the house? Or are you going to bury them at a cemetery, or, you know,
I mean, personally, I favor cremation, but other people, sometimes people do bury them in their backyards. Um,
but
that is an
$600
option.
is still too much. Yeah, I've really just have a real bad taste in my mouth for profit in death care. I have a
Uh-huh.
bad taste in my mouth. I mean, after what my sister went through, and then hearing what my grandmother went through, I'm
Uh-huh.
over it. And people are like, "Oh, you're fighting the system." Well, yep, I sure am, because they're not going to fight themselves. They're not going to regulate themselves. They're not going to control themselves. They're not going to reel themselves in. Obviously, they haven't done it yet. And the prices
Right.
of cemetery land go up with the price of inflation. So, guess what?
Yeah.
The last 4 years have happened. They've gone up 21%, even
Hmm.
though their costs haven't gone up necessarily. But it's all for profit, and that's the problem. We Death care needs to be nonprofit. And if I'm the one to introduce it, so be it. I figure it's a real simple solution. It took a real simple gal to figure it out.
So, then again, and obviously everything's subject to change, right? I mean, not everything, but some things in your plan would be subject to change. But so say somebody, obviously, when you join the society, you don't necessarily, well, very unlikely that you know when you're going to pass away, unless you already have some kind of catastrophic illness that, you're on death's door. And with a pet, say, most pets don't live as long as humans. So are you assigning like they do at a regular cemetery, a certain area that would be reserved for that family and their pets?
Yeah. So we're going to start with a few acres at a time and then add on to that area, a specific area for uh, full family or pets and humans mixed together, as long as it's legal in that state. I'm learning recently that there's a couple of states that it's not legal at all. I don't necessarily know that they can do that to us because we're a private society, but I'll find out. We've got plenty of lawyers that are walking with us on this route, but we will uh, we will have surveyed areas as we sell memberships. We'll keep surveying different areas, and so yeah, people will know where their spot is in the garden,
Wow.
and then be able to go out there and take care of it, tend to it yourself. My thought is to have each person like a 10 by 10 area, especially if they're a whole body burial. Well, only if they're a whole body burial. But so like a family of 4 or 6, a family of 4 would have like a 40 by 40 area,
Uh-huh.
and they could start planting their family tree on it now. They could pick a big old whatever. In Florida, the olive tree will live 500 years. I think that if I pass in Florida, I want to be an olive tree. With some of my girlfriends, we're going to be buried around it together. I've got
Oh,
I've got a girlfriend. She's an old horse girl, and just kind of one of them cranky ones. And she's like, I don't want to be buried and be in no box. And she said, I don't want to be cremated either. I said, well, what are you going to do, Mary Jo? You ain't got a whole lot of choices. She said,
right.
well, I don't know, but I said, Mary Jo, you could be a tree with me. She says, oh, that sounds nice.
That's great. Well, this has been a great conversation. I
Thank
really
you.
enjoyed it. I got a text message from Emily that said that her power went out. That they're having
Uh-oh.
rain and thunderstorms now in Madison, Wisconsin. So, Emily, if you're here, if you got back on, let me know. But otherwise, I will go ahead and close this out. Did you have closing thoughts, Cheri, that you wanted to share?
Yes, Debbie, I would love to meet with you again and find out if you can't be a board member, who do you know that would be?
Okay.
Yeah, if you could help us find a few people, we'll get started in Arizona.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting. I think it sounds really good, and certainly a place for your pets that can be near you. So that's a plus. So, all right. Well, as Emily mentioned initially, we are hosted, I guess, overseen by the World of Ability Podcast Network. And we have our podcast here on YouTube at 6 p.m. Pacific every week on Tuesdays. Would love for people to get on live and so that we can have some interaction. It seems like most people have the habit of going back afterwards and getting on. So, yeah, please let everybody know about us, Cheri, and about this episode so they can go back and hear more about what you're doing. Yes, ma'am.
I've got somebody I would introduce you to that would be a great addition to your podcast. She's on our board, and she's a paralegal, legacy paralegal. Her name is Brianna, and she does a lot of work with pet uh, uh, with families with pets, and then how to care for their pet after something might happen to them. And so anyway, Brianna is able to turn people onto our project, so people aren't spending so much money on uh, their own funeral and their pets' funerals, and now they can use that money for other things. So, yeah, I'm glad to introduce you to Brianna.
All right. Very good. Thank you. So again, we are here. We have found something that we think is a great thing for pets. The way this works is it's a mushroom supplement that allows the body to heal itself or allows the body to stay healthy. And we do have some human products, but obviously we feature our pet products on this show. So you can go to debspets.com and get some more information, or you can look for me on LinkedIn, and it's Debbie-Hayes-AZ. So thank you for joining, and we will see you here next week. And again, Cheri, thank you very much.
Thank you, Debbie.
So
You're done?